My name's Vanessa Correa,
And I'm Ijama Nzekwe.
and we're doing carpal tunnel syndrome.
Our patient is Jen, and she's a 52-year-old administrative assistant. She works 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. She's been working at her job for the past 5 years. Her job requires her to file documents, also make phone calls, and also input data via her computer. But for the past 7 days, she's been having to input the data manually with pen and paper because her computer broke down. And so within the past week, she's been experiencing numbness in her right hand. She says it feels useless, as if it's swollen, but there's no swelling apparent. It wakes her up at night to a point where she feels like she has to shake her wrist out. She also gardens as a way to de-stress from her work week, and she's not able to do so anymore. So she expresses the need to be able to work again and garden again without pain.
So the anatomy of the carpal tunnel syndrome consists of a narrow passageway in the wrist, and it's made of ligaments, tendons, and bones. The floors and sides of the tunnel are formed by the carpal bones, and the median nerve is pretty much compressed in the wrist. Okay, so for the MOI, the patient's an administrative assistant, and she types most of the day without breaks. Since her computer has broken down, she is now writing with her right hand, and is also not taking any breaks. She's also gardening, and her pain used to be very faint, but now it's very intense and it's become very unbearable. She has a positive valence test, a reverse valence test, and tunnel sign. For the signs and symptoms in the beginning of the injury, the pain comes and goes. The patient usually feels tingling, numbness, and pain in the hand. It may radiate to the forearm and to the shoulder as well. The primary pain begins in the thumb, index finger, and middle finger, and also the ring finger. The patient will feel shock-like sensations, and they also radiate to the thumb. Also, there's weakening and clumsiness in the hands, which can lead to difficultness in very fine movements.
So non-operative versus operative interventions. Non-operative interventions are basically treatments that aren't done surgically. So exercises, wearing a brace or some type of protective wear, or NSA IDs like ibuprofen or Tylenol, Advil, things like that. Operative interventions are treatments done surgically. So for our non-operative interventions, like I said, we have NSAIDs, and that would be ibuprofen to decrease pain or inflammation. Also, the patient can wear a brace or a splint to help with relieving pressure from the median nerve, so that the hand is not able to flex. Exercises include the median nerve stretch, the median nerve release, also the first rib stretch, and a stress ball. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that for you guys. So the median nerve stretch, the patient is going to hold their right arm out to the side, so you're going to stand this way and have their wrist at neutral, and then they're going to go ahead and extend their wrist and tilt their head laterally to the opposite side. And the patient is going to hold that position for 30 seconds, and we're going to do 3 sets of that. For the median nerve release, the patient is going to stand with the affected arm, the right arm, in front of them, and they are going to ball their hand in a fist and hold that for 5 seconds. And then they are going to release the fist and hold their hand in a neutral position for 5 seconds. Then they're going to make a supine C with their hand and hold that for 5 seconds. And then a prone C, hold that for 5 seconds. And then back to supine, and they're going to reach with their other arm and grab their thumb and pull down and hold that for 5 seconds. And they're going to do 3 sets of that series of movements. For the first rib stretch, The patient is going to put this towel on their affected shoulder, and the patient can be standing or supine. And so they're going to reach with their left hand and hold this, the front part, and the right hand and hold the back of the towel and pull down simultaneously and hold that for 30 seconds, and they're going to repeat that another 2 times. So for the last exercise, it will be a stress ball exercise, and this should be done in the later phases of exercise or the rehab plan because it requires a lot of flexing. And so the patient's going to sit down and have their arm on a table and have it extended out in front of them, and they're just going to take the stress ball and squeeze it at their own pace 10 times, and they're going to repeat that for 3 sets. So also with non-operative interventions, we can have activity changes. So in this case, the patient can ask a coworker to help her input the data manually, or have use her coworker's computer. We can also have our patient use her opposite hand to do majority of her work. Also ergonomics take play in this. The patient can improve their posture by putting like a pad here in the back of their seat, or also having a foam pad where their keyboard is, so that their wrist can rest on top of it while they're typing to bring comfort to them. Operative interventions are surgical. So we have carpal tunnel release, which is a way to relieve pressure on the median nerve by cutting the transverse carpal ligament. And so there's open carpal tunnel release and endoscopic carpal tunnel release. With open carpal tunnel release, the doctor makes an incision so that you can see all the ligaments, and he basically divides the transverse carpal ligament to relieve the pressure on the median nerve. Endoscopic is the same thing, except they're using an endoscope, which will go into the skin, and without showing all the ligaments and things, you can see it through the camera on the endoscope, and it divides the transverse ligament also, just like in open carpal tunnel release. With surgical interventions, it's going to take longer for the patient to recover, so that's why we've decided to go with the non-operative route for our patient, seeing as she wants to go back to work and be able to garden again.
Okay, since it is a microtrauma case, there's no actual certain substantial event that occurs that requires immediate emergency, but if the pain is unbearable, the patient should be referred to a physician immediately. The concerns for the patient are if the patient does not follow his treatment plan or her treatment plan as he should or she should, the injury will no longer heal and they will have to use an operative treatment. If it's left untreated again, it can cause weakness and lack of coordination in the fingers and thumbs. And it can also cause irreversible nerve damage and muscle damage. If the pain is very unbearable, the pain will not let the patient sleep at night, so the patient will be waking up many times during the night, and it will affect their night's sleeping schedule. And carpal tunnel syndrome will prevent this patient specifically from gardening and also from performing her task at work. So the precautions for this injury involve the patient not being able to carry objects or hold objects. The patient should avoid activities that increase carpal tunnel syndrome. The patient needs to take short breaks involving their wrist during the day to avoid more pain. And the activities that require repetitive movement of hands and wrists must occur at different time points in the day because it can worsen carpal tunnel syndrome. The patient should avoid keeping their hands bent forward since this can pinch the carpal tunnel.
That's it?
Oh wait. This is how we're excited.
Yay! Okay.
patient is Jen. She's 52 years old. She works as an admitted. Can I keep going?
That's gonna be me, so don't worry.
Okay.
Do you want me to start?
Is standing. Okay.
Yeah, y'all can be in the middle. Y'all are still in the frame. I don't know how to like